Yes. Hello. Thank you for speaking with me. This show is very different. And so, what I really loved about, yes, we have the whole astrology situation going on, but shows there's marriage at the end. And that seems to be a huge commitment. So, why would you sign up for something that, seems so infinite? It's marriage.
You want to take this one, bro?
Yeah. So yeah, the offer of marriage is on the table, but it's more the aspect of seeing if we can actually find love. So just because it's on the table doesn't mean we have to actually do it. And on top of that, it's really about who we match up with and how we feel about that person by the end. Going through the show, it was like a extremely emotional journey. At the same time, very eye-opening for like all of us, I feel like, because we learned a lot about ourselves, learned about a lot about what we're looking for in a partner, and learned a lot about just the cast and in general.
Watching the show, I realized for me that a little bit
I'm
of a
sorry, you're
wondering.
breaking up in and out.
Oh gosh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes. Go ahead.
It seems that Noel, you have a little bit of a wondering eye,
Yes.
and for Connor, it seems like we're grounded. And so I wanted to know, what was it coming into the show that you really wanted to get out from it, and did you achieve that?
I mean, I think I personally came in with a very open mindset in the fact that, like, I believed in astrology. I also was very hesitant to feel like, hey, you're going to fall. Somebody says like, you're going to fall in love with somebody in 4 weeks. I was kind of like, well, bullshit. That's never happened before. Yeah. It's not going to happen now. So I was very hesitant to like get along into the process and kind of get down in the trenches and figure that stuff out. But as time goes on, it was kind of like, I was just trying to figure some stuff out about myself and see if my belief in astrology was not necessarily misplaced, but like if it was real and if I could kind of trust the stars and astrology to kind of guide myself through the process of figuring myself out as well as my romantic partner. And that was kind of what I had hoped to get out of it. I don't think anybody was going in like, I really, really need to get married, but it was like, I'm open to love. I'm open to getting to know this person. And I hope the process goes well enough that it could maybe end in marriage and maybe just end in something else. So,
yeah. And for me, it was more the aspect of like, I'm always busy. I'm very to myself. Like I work on my mental, my spiritual, my physique, my financial. So I'm always grinding. I'm always trying to improve, always trying to get better. So I never really have time to really sit down and say, hey, it's time to find love. Like, let me really give this girl a chance. Like, if you fit in my schedule, cool. If you don't, okay, then I just really can't help you at that point in time. So being so driven, so goal oriented, having the time to actually really get to know someone just based off, not just off their physicality, but their emotional state and everything else, just for me was a big thing. And like my wandering eye, I know we're talking about it, but I'm a personal trainer. I like to look at people's bodies in general. Like men, I look at men's body as well. So I'm like, okay, he has nice chest, he has nice abs. Yeah, you got nice arms. he has nice legs, like nice quads. And like those are certain things I just noticed as a personal trainer because that's my whole job. And I like to critique it. Like maybe they need to work on this a little bit more. Like just put that out. And like I like beautiful things. So who doesn't as a man? So for me, it was more of the aspect of just really giving like astrology a chance to really guide me. At first, I wasn't really believing into it, so I went with my own gut. And then as time progressed and they proved me like, okay, they really know what they're talking about. They know things about me that no, they should not have no idea. But it's like they had cameras in my house. Like, how do they know this? So moving forward, I was just like, all right, I'm gonna really just trust the process. Whatever they tell me, I'm gonna take it and I'm just going to run with it and just do my best to see if this is right for me.
The Astro Chamber is a really interesting element. You're basically talking to an orb. So what was it? Was like, seems a little awkward, but everyone kind of flowed with it. So can you talk about how that was like, the process? Did you get over the fact that it was just like an orb?
Yeah, I mean, at first it was definitely, it seemed kind of comical at first. Like you're just like, oh, am I talking to my conscience right now? And it kind of, like I said, at first you're skeptical and you're kind of like, okay, whatever. This is part of the stick. It's part of the whole experiment. And then like as they start saying stuff, you're like, how'd you know that? And then it's
I'm thinking this right now.
As things go on, I was like, I hadn't said anything to that person, and how'd you know I felt that way about them? And then they kept kind of explaining, going deeper, and you're like, holy shit, like this, everything's lining up, everything's tracking, like it's all making sense. And then you're kind of like, I can't wait to talk to the Astro Chamber today. And
I got some questions.
I got some things I need to answer, and I need to ask them. And it was like at first it's like you're joking about it, and then you're kind of like getting more into it. Then it's real, and then you're kind of like, I'm in. I need to talk to that orb. That orb has my answers. I need them now.
I also loved it. It seemed like the show was kind of breaking bad habits, bad dating habits. And did you through this whole process realize any of the bad habits that you had initially? Because sometimes we're not aware of it.
Yeah, 100%. Like I already knew a lot of my bad habits because I spent like years self-reflecting on a lot of different things about myself and really trying to evolve and grow. And that's why when I came in here, communication was always going to be key. Like I know my bad habits. I'm going to tell you, hey, this is how I feel at this point in time. And just making it aware and known, like I'm trying to work on these things. I'm trying to become better at it. And like when the Astro Chamber said these things, like maybe it's cool. So at first I just thought it was just me. I didn't know why I felt these ways or thought the way I thought. But then when they started breaking it down to me, oh, it's your Mercury or your rising or whatever the case may be, somewhere in your house, you feel this way because of that. And it's like, whoa, what the hell? How do they know that? But there's ways, and like I say, take it as a guidance when it comes down to astrology. Because there's certain things about you, but as human beings, I feel like we're built to adapt. So no matter what it is, we can always change it about ourselves if we really want to and put in the work and the effort.
No, any bad habits that you didn't know you had?
I mean,
wait, I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you. What'd you say? You're still breaking up. Let me see.
I'm sorry.
Can you say that?
I'm saying any other thing you would like to add to that, bad habits?
I think a lot of us, and we all kind of take our initial attraction is what we base our relationships on. So a lot of people would go in and be like, well, I think she's hot, so I'm going to go start dating her. And they would ignore a lot of the red flags or the possible, not necessarily lack of communication, but lack of connection. And something that a lot of people need is like, they need a good base and a good concrete form of communication. And if like your forms of communication aren't the same, then you're probably not going to have a great relationship. So astrology is huge in helping that out, when in the real world, initially we'd just be like, I see that, I want that, I'm going to try and date her, and we're going to try and force it to work when it's like a circle and a square. But then basing it off of astrology, it's like you guys have the same forms of communication. You both have this base, you're both family oriented, and you don't necessarily have to go through those trials and tribulations and waste time when it's like, okay, so we have the same form of communication. I also think she's attractive or he's attractive, and now we can kind of get together and we know that this is a solid base and we can keep going forward from there rather than wasting time and just being like, she's hot, I want to date her, I don't care if it's going to work or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we all kind of had going in there. And at first we're like, okay, like this is what my eyes want, but it's like, take a step back and then be like, okay, like they're attractive, but what do they have to offer? Not necessarily astrologically, but how are we compatible? And like, where do our souls and our spirits kind of come together? And that was something that I think we all learned a lot about throughout the experiment.
Yeah, like what someone brings out of you, I feel like was one of the biggest things, because like me, like I said, I'm very self-reflective. So I've been working on myself for so long, but I got to a point where I was like, maybe I need something to help push me past some of this type of inspiration, something that was going to bring more out of me. And who does that but a partner? What else would be better but a partner who could bring that out of you?
Looking back on the show and looking at your relationships now, even with your friendships, do you look for friendships or relationships differently than what you've done, say, before the show?
Honestly, I still don't, because like I said, I'm very intuitive as a Pisces. So I fill out my friends regardless, and I keep a very small circle, like of the people I actually confide in and people that I actually keep close to me and hang around in general. So for me, not so much. I never really had a big circle to begin with.
I've kind of looked back on, I don't think I've made a ton of new friends since the experiments happened, but looking back on, bro, I'm saying since it happened, obviously we're friends. But like looking back now and you're seeing like the people that have been in your life consistently and you're like long-term best friends or family, or like maybe you get along better with a certain sibling than another, or like a cousin or an aunt or a friend, and you're like, oh shit, like that makes sense. Like we have a lot of these compatibilities. Like you're this sign, and this sign. Like makes sense that we stay in touch. Or you have somebody who's like, say, an Aquarius that's like kind of ostracizes themselves and like time to themselves. You're like, oh, they only reach out like every couple of weeks, but we're still really close. Like that makes sense. And you look at your friends and your family and you're like, oh, everything's checking out. Yeah. But I haven't, and I don't think I ever will be like, well, Noel's a Pisces and I'm a Gemini, so we're not going to get along because water and air don't mix. It's like different vibes and different personalities, and like maybe we won't get along every day, but like we still have a great time when we're together. Until we live together, I guess we won't find out.
Yeah, and we won't live together. God, I have no more roommates.
Are you now changed by astrology? Are you someone who really focuses on that, or are you looking at the back of, I guess, a newspaper or an app to see what the horoscope for today?
Yeah, I did download my course. I ain't gonna lie, I downloaded the course after after the whole experience. Oh, let me look what I'm feeling today. Yeah. But like I said, I do it every once in a while because if I start feeling a certain type of way, because talk to the Astro twins, they really put certain things in perspective. It's just so your houses is like basically your traits and everything else, but depending on the moon phases, depending on retrograde or things like that, you might be feeling totally different than you would normally feel. So having that into perspective allowed me to really see like, okay, maybe am I feeling this way because of X, Y, and Z, or is it just me, or is it the moon, or whatever the case may be?
It's the moon, bro.
It's the moon.
No, getting in touch, and I think having the Astro twins on essentially speed dial has been huge, because you can just be like, hey, what's coming up? Like I saw this big date that's coming up, and how's it going to affect me? And like I feel like I've been trying to learn more about it so that I don't need to bother them so much all the time. Be like, hey, like Mercury's coming into Scorpio, what does that mean for me? So now I'm kind of like, well, Scorpio's in my north nodes, that means that going forward, and so on and so forth. But it's definitely been a fun learning curve, and something that I personally like was sort of into. Then the show happened, and now I'm like getting much more into it, because I think it's really interesting to see how like all those relationships kind of bounce off one another.
Oh, I definitely saw all my friends. I'm like, yeah, download CoStar. Just see what your chart says. You feel like that? Yeah, just download it. I'm sorry.
Kind of like ISIS. There was can you hear me?
Yeah, now go ahead.
There were really fun games that was played. It gets right down to the heart of things later on. You're able to open up, and a lot of things is shared. But what was the elements kind of in terms of games, and then the icebreaker moments that really was the turning point for you completely giving yourself over to this show?
The games and the icebreaker moments.
The only moment for me that really gave me over to the show was my first, like, if you prove me wrong once, I'm the type of person